We have some big news coming out of AEW, as well as some WWE news that I want to talk about. Darby Allin, Jeff Cobb, and more on Screw the Script. Let's get the big and most exciting news out of the way first. Darby Allin has made the peak, the top of Mount Everest. He has been climbing for a while. He prepped for a while, had to delay it due to, I believe it was an ankle injury. He has done it. We saw, I think last week, he did a kickflip that actually set the world record for highest elevation kickflip. Now, I don't think anyone's ever going to break that record because only Darby Allin is crazy enough to do that. You know, when you're at an elevation that high, the smallest things will tire you out because of the oxygen difference and everything due to the elevation. That kickflip probably felt like he was trying to kickflip a cinder block or something intense. So that was damn impressive. But now we have word, and here's a photo right there. Darby Allin has reached the peak of Mount Everest. He needs the biggest push of his career when he comes back to AEW. Tony Khan, you need to just send him to the moon because he's already made the top of Everest. So you gotta go higher than that now. He has done something that only a select few people have ever done in the history of mankind. It is not an easy task. The fact that he can do this right after recovering from an injury and still go on and do it, when he comes back, he truly is fearless. He can stare down the eyes of any opponent in AEW and legitimately beat them, at least in my mind. If he can beat the climb to Mount Everest, there is nobody in AEW that he can't beat. If he puts his mind to it, his effort, and his willpower, he can become AEW champ. If either Will Ospreay or Hangman don't dethrone Moxley at Allin July, Darby Allin is your guy. Another thing that I want to talk about, now this is a knock against AEW. First, I mentioned something great for AEW with Darby Allin, but this past Saturday on Collision, I didn't watch it live. I was busy over the weekend, so I wasn't able to watch it live, but I heard all the mishaps that happened. I heard that it was a solid Collision yet again, but then I think it was right at the 90-minute mark or somewhere around there, the feed drops. Now, this stuff happened early on, and I gave them a pass because it was early on. They've been around for 6 years now. Stuff like this should not be happening. I don't know what in the world went on. I don't think there's any information yet still on what caused this to happen. It's just, it's not a good look for AEW. Tony Khan, you need to make sure things like this does not happen, even if it means spending a little bit less money on your talent and a little bit more money on production and all those behind the scenes guys. You gotta do it. Now on to some quick WWE news. There's a lot of it that's happened since I made a last video. I was excited for Jeff Cobb to be in WWE, and they have fucking butchered him already. J.C. Mateo is now his name. Literally sounds like a Rocket Power side character from that Nickelodeon show. You know what I'm talking about? J.C. Mateo, Tito, and all those guys. Like, what are you doing? He is in his 40s. I understand name changes if it's a wrestler that is upcoming, you know, in their 20s, and they want to just give him a new identity. I don't know. Maybe this has to do with New Japan trademarking the name. But there's ways around that. Big mistake there. And then they drop his singlet look. I hope that wasn't permanent. I hope it was just a one-off this past Friday. But his singlet look was badass. And this past Friday, he was literally just wearing like security guard gear. I know it's maybe to go with like the whole bloodline stuff. So I pray that it is not permanent. But I do not like what they have done to Jeff Cobb. Some positive WWE news. They're trying to file a trademark for King of the Luchadors for El Grande Americano, one of the most entertaining, gimmicks that WWE has put out in a little while. I'm not sure how much longer it's going to go on for. I'm assuming if they're working this hard to file a trademark for El Grande Americano, it's not going away anytime soon. I know Worlds Collide is right around the corner, but I think it's going to stick around much longer than that. The only small drawback for this, as good of a character and gimmick as El Grande Americano is, I'm starting to wonder if it's going to hurt Chad Gable, because he's such a good worker, but it almost feels like El Grande Americano is becoming more over than Chad Gable himself. People are going to want to see El Grande and not Gable. I mean, El Grande Americano was the one that got the Mania moment and not Chad Gable. Yes, storyline purposes, I understand, but still, it could have been written as such where it was Chad Gable defending the honor of El Grande Americano at Mania or something along the lines of that. That's the only thing that I'm concerned about, is that if this keeps propelling and skyrocketing for WWE, where does Chad Gable as Chad Gable fit into all of this? Legends and Future Greats, or just simply LFG, I've watched parts of it here and there. My gripe is that, yet again, I think this makes they've got to be close to 30 now. There is now a championship for LFG, for the legends that are the coaches and whatnot. So Undertaker won the inaugural and first ever LFG championship. I think that was presented to him by Shawn Michaels, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, Shawn Michaels. I didn't watch it live, but I'm seeing the news on this. There are some compelling competitors from the show. Don't get me wrong. And I truly do think that some of these individuals will, in fact, be future stars for the company. But do we really need to have another championship floating around WWE? Yes, I understand this is separate from NXT, separate from Raw, SmackDown, all that. It doesn't matter. It's still WWE, and they're announcing championships left and right. Relatively recent, they have announced 4 more titles on top of the over 20 now that they have, if you include the main roster from Raw and SmackDown. And you can't really separate those because those are pretty interchangeable on the main roster. And then you got NXT, and then you got TNA now that they're partnered with them, and they are featured quite a bit. I mean, we just saw Joe Hendry a couple of times now. It's just too much. It really is too much. That is just my personal opinion. I didn't like how often AEW was showcasing New Japan and TNA champs when TNA was still kind of doing things with them. It was just too much. But they've cut back heavily on that. Yes, they still have Athena on once in a while, maybe some other ROH champs once in a while. They rarely feature any New Japan champs except the titles that Mercedes has right now. Everything else is in-house. Everything else is AEW. And it's felt a lot smoother and better and has made their titles feel more meaningful. Where it's like flip-flops now with WWE. They have titles left and right. They have, like, you can walk into WWE now and you have like a 50% chance of winning a title in your first year because there's so many. And I think that really deteriorates the how special it is to win a title. Less is more. They want to say in WWE lately that they don't do all these crazy spots. They don't include, and they're not even like crazy spots, really. God forbid they include a, diving clothesline to the outside. Like, Dominic Mysterio, here's a photo here saying that, less is more, and that, I don't need to do a dive to the outside of the ring. Because when I do do that once in a while, everyone's like, oh my God, did you see that? No, like that was the mindset in 1985 when guys started to do things off the top rope sparingly. Yes, but it's 2025. Wrestling has evolved many times over the decades, and it has evolved in the last 10 years. I do not agree with Dominic Mysterio on that. I really think that, especially for bigger shows, you need to go all out. And half the matches at WrestleMania this year felt no different than a match that happens on Raw. Tell me if I'm wrong, but that's just how I feel. That's all I had on this shorter episode of Screw the Script. You let me know down below what you think about all of this stuff. This has been Maverick with Screw the Script. Thanks for watching.